For number 14, you're given a scenario where a firework is being shot in the air and then lands back on the ground. And this equation here gives the height, h represents height, at a certain amount of time that's gone by, and the time is in seconds. So this picture here that I drew down below, I knew that it started at 20 feet because the back number here was 20, the y-intercept. And so if you look, they want us to find the highest point. So I already labeled the highest point here at the very top. That would be our vertex. So they want to find the amount of seconds that went by to get there, so t, and then h, the actual height. So, in other words, we are finding the vertex. So in order to find the vertex, we're using a formula. To get the x-coordinate, it would be the opposite of b over 2a. So if I look at my equation, let's identify a and b. I know a is the number in front of the first term, or the term with the variable squared. Usually it's an x squared, but in this case it's a t squared because of the scenario. So a is negative 16. B is always a number in front of the variable to the first power, usually just an x, but in this case again it's a t, so that would be 64. So if I plug that in, the opposite of b would be negative 64, and that's all over 2 times a, and I'm plugging in negative 16 for a. So if I multiply or simplify my fraction here, negative 64, and if I multiply 2 times negative 16, that's negative 32. So negative 64 divided by negative 32 is 2. So that means my time here would be 2 seconds. So at 2 seconds, it hit the highest point. So how do I find the highest point? I take 2 and I plug it into this equation for t. So h of 2 means I am plugging in 2 for t, in other words, trying to find the height at 2 seconds. So I would have negative 16, and I'm plugging in 2 for t, plus 64, so plus 64, plugging in 2 for t, and then that back term is just plus 20. Alright, so my first term here, I know that I have to apply exponents first, so 2 squared is 4, and 4 times negative 16 is negative 64. My middle term should be twice as big, an opposite sign, and 64 times 2 is 128, and that worked out. And then plus 20. So negative 64 plus 128 is back to 64, and 64 plus 20 would be 84. So my height then here, my height would be 84 feet. So at 2 seconds, it reached a max height of 84 feet.